Sahil, the last time we talked about this, the same Senate Republicans who worked on the bipartisan bill, they voted against it. Where do things stand now?
Infrastructure week here on Capitol Hill. We are told by a Democratic source close to the negotiations that Democrats, in conjunction with the White House, sent Republicans what they call a global offer to resolve all the lingering disputes in this bipartisan infrastructure deal and finally ink it. That includes disputes over transit funding. It includes less high-profile disputes over how to handle broadband policy, how to handle water policy, and labor provisions as it relates to the construction of these projects. One separate Democratic source told me they are tantalizingly close to a deal, and if they get the transit issue resolved, there's a lot of optimism that the rest of the stuff could come together pretty quickly. Now, last night, before this offer went through, a Republican source told me that they believe their offers on transit are reasonable, that this comes on top of billions of dollars that have been spent on public transportation as part of these COVID relief negotiations. And this Republican source put it to me this way: if Democrats don't become more flexible on this, this deal is unlikely to happen. That gives you a sense of where the two sides are. But this week is going to be a very, very important one because they've dragged this out and dragged this out.
Okay.
And they're getting very close to the August recess, Stephanie.
Okay, but Sahil, we have been saying that every single week for weeks. We're tantalizingly close. It's going to happen this week. At what point does this become a failure? Like, let's be honest. People mocked former President Trump's infrastructure week endlessly, but we've been having infrastructure week every week for quite a while now on Biden's clock.
Stephanie, I think the effective deadline that everyone is looking at is the August recess. That is supposed to happen at the end, starting at the end of next week. And the reason for this is twofold. The first is, as I think Claire McCaskill could remember, back to, thinking back to 2009, letting a big negotiation languish over the August recess is dangerous because it gives the opposition a chance to mobilize and to organize. And that August recess of 2009 nearly killed the ACA. That is one reason that negotiators are very determined to get this done before lawmakers go home, because you don't know how the politics could change once that happens. So I think this week is important for the bipartisan infrastructure deal because Democrats want to spend next week advancing the budget resolution. There's so much they want to do in such a short period of time, Stephanie.
Okay, but Claire, if this bipartisan deal is everything, is Nancy Pelosi possibly derailing the whole thing with this two-track system, saying she wants the human infrastructure bill to pass in conjunction with it? Because A, we don't know that all moderate Democrats have signed on to it, and B, Republicans will walk away.
Well, Nancy is trying to push as hard as she knows how to get both packages across the finish line. On the other hand, I think it's really important, Stephanie, to remember that there's two types of people on Capitol Hill that run for office. One is the type that never has to worry about winning a general election. The majority of senators and the majority of people in the House of Representatives only have to worry about primaries. The people that have to make this deal, whether it's on the big package having to do with expanding Medicare and child care, or whether it's on this nuts and bolts infrastructure package, the people who are actually negotiating, the staffs that are in the room, are those people who have to kick and fight and claw for every vote in a general election. They're also the ones that can't win with just the votes of their own party. So it's two different animals that are trying to come together and find that elusive common ground. I think they'll find it on the infrastructure because a bunch of those Republicans are for it because they know it's popular in their state and they need some of those independent votes. And I think it'll happen on the other package, but probably not as big a number as Joe Biden and some of the very, very blue district Democrats want.
John, your new piece dives into this gamble Democrats are making with a two-track proposal. You make a case that Democrats don't think inflation that we're facing right now matters very much because what they're doing is creating long-term solutions on the infrastructure side. How dangerous is that? Because when you go to people's kitchen tables, they're talking about rising prices at the grocery store every day.
Well, Senator McCaskill hit this right on the head. And the reason that I wrote this is because I talked to Democratic senators and they said, look, even if we believe that inflation was as bad as some folks think it is, we'd still want to do the climate change proposals, still want to do the Medicare expansion, still want to do all of the things that are in that $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, as well as the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. And Senator McCaskill hit it on the head in that the vast majority of folks in the Democratic Party and Congress never have to worry about re-election, but it is that small set who do have to worry about re-election, who are paying a lot of attention to inflation numbers and who look at it and say, if inflation continues through the next midterm, we are going to be gone and the Democratic majority is going to be gone. For Joe Biden, who's looking at legacy, for senators and House members who don't have to worry about those general elections, they care a lot more about trying to get these programs in place.
Claire, Joe Biden understands this deeply. We live in a short-term world. People vote with their wallets today. Democrats have a tie in the Senate, a narrow majority in the House. Do you think this could cost them the midterms? Even if being ambitious is the right idea fundamentally, practically, you think it could cost them the midterms?
Well, listen, I think this could cost the Republicans the midterms. I think this could go either way. And that's why, at the end of the day, I think you're going to get a deal that will be very popular in terms of roads, bridges, a power grid, broadband. And then I think you'll get some kind of package on expanding Medicare, which will also be very popular. But the short-term inflation is way more worrisome to people in swing districts. And that could end up playing a hand in next year's midterm. But on the other hand, so could Donald Trump acting like an idiot. And Donald Trump acting like an idiot helped us put Joe Biden in the White House. And, I'll kind of bank on that because I think Donald Trump's going to continue to act like an idiot.
How difficult is this for lawmakers, but Democrats specifically? In general, people think more money in the system is good. It's good for everyone. But when you actually look at the economics, it's not that more money helps. It's smart money. How difficult is it for Democrats to say no to things when it comes to financial support?
Hey, listen, Stephanie, the Republicans have lost the high ground on fiscal conservancy. I mean, they no longer have any right to talk about debt and deficit. They could care less about debt and deficit when they're in power. They only care about it when the Democrats are in power. And people kind of know that. They have been on a wild spending spree over the last decade, especially during the Trump years. So they really don't have authority on this. And I think it will ring hollow. The only thing that will end up biting people is if, in fact, this inflation is less than temporary. If it grabs hold and it really is a problem come this time next year, then you're going to see some sweating by both Democrats and Republicans that are in swing districts.